Hey, this is Nate Northway. I'm out here mixing Breaking Benjamin on the Stained Breaking Ben co-headline. We're at beautiful Pine Knob today. Welcome to Front of House.
Brother, thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So, first question is, what we ask everybody is, how did you actually discover music?
Oh, man.
As our good friend Zappa would
discover music. So I grew up in a household that was full of music. Mom and Dad always had, big speakers blasting Yes and Phil Collins, and I'm a product of the '80s. So
okay, good.
That's all kind of
They infiltrated you with the right products.
Yeah, deeply ingrained in my DNA, I think. So it was always kind of there, the love for music. And then as I got older, started to discover, hard rock and stuff that my parents necessarily didn't, love.
Like what?
Metallica is really what started all of this for me, really.
Nice.
I discovered Metallica on the Black Album. I was like 11, 12 years old maybe when that came out, and it just changed everything.
That album made me a lot of money because that's when digital hit, because they did that record did. And so I had the first 8-ats in New England.
Yeah.
So everybody wanted to come, record like Metallica with digital stuff.
Digital, yeah.
Unfortunately, not good sounding digital, but
for sure.
Did the job.
And then that led to just playing guitar, and eventually, as you probably know, when you're in a band and poor, you can't afford to go to a studio, so someone's got to figure it out, and that was me. I just started, recording my bands, and just by default became the guy who mixed.
So was there a switch moment where you went from, I'm the guitar player in the band, to like, you made this realization that something happened? Like for me, I'm 17, I'm in the studio, we go in as a rock band, my drummer's hitting the snare as hard as he can, comes out like a country western band, it's going pop, pop.
Yeah.
Something happened. That was like my aha moment. Do you have an aha moment?
In a way. So when I was 15 or 16 years old, I remember I went to my first heavy metal concert. It was Sepultura.
Awesome.
And I remember standing in the crowd, and they were sound checking, right before the band went on, and the kick drum with those subs hitting you in the chest. The first time you feel that at like that concert volume is, for me, it was kind of an aha moment, like, wow, okay, there's something to this other than just like, oh, that's the band up there playing. There's all these other elements that are really making this an impressive thing, and so that's kind of, I think, what first triggered, like, maybe that's something I want to explore. But then, as I got older and bands kind of started to become, all right, I'm in my 20s, 30s now, things are not going to work out here. I had already been mixing, and it was just kind of a natural progression. I really, really enjoyed the mixing side of things, and tinkering with toys and all that type of thing. And so it was just kind of a natural progression for me. Yeah.
So you were a studio guy before you were a live guy?
I was.
Okay.
I never had a real studio job, quote unquote, but I had a home studio that I ran, and recorded bands. And really kind of cut my teeth there, learning how to listen for compression and EQ and all that kind of stuff on Pro Tools LE or, whatever it was at the time.
Get to make the mistakes in the privacy of your own chambers.
Exactly, with low pressure, low budget, So, and then, that kind of led to, working with local bands. Some of those guys were in the live music scene. A friend of mine went on his first tour, and they needed somebody to kind of cover him at the local concert venue. He was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I guess so, give it a try. And when I started doing the live sound, it's like, oh, okay, this is it for me. I love the, the speed and the pace of just, fixing things on the fly and then moving on. It's like, as opposed to in the studio, there's a week of editing drums.
Making the Tusk record.
Exactly. So, and live, it's like, mistakes happen, and then you leave it behind, and you try again the next day, and I really, really love that aspect of, you just kind of like, you're just trying to get better every single day, better than your last show, you know?
Yeah, there's also all those highlights of like glorious moments.
Absolutely.
A lot of endorphin hits.
Absolutely. And you know, that's one of the things that kind of drives me live is, you know, at the volume and with the subs and all that kind of stuff, you can really like make that experience for the crowd, but also for yourself. You know, when you're pushing things like, ooh, you know, this is a big part, and really try and represent that sonically. You know, you've got a lot more power out here than you do on a set of near fields. And so it's overwhelming sometimes. And I love that feeling, and I love, you know, the chance to give it to other people. You know, hopefully they get that same experience that I did when I was 15 years old.
I'm sure they do.
You know?
Is there anything you miss about recording from moving into?
So yeah, absolutely. And I still do, you know, dabble. I still record and mix and stuff when I have time. This consumes, you know, the majority of my year. But some of the things that I really miss is maybe some things that other people would consider tedious, but I love like shooting out guitar amps and speakers and microphones and all this kind of stuff that you have a very short time to accomplish live.
Right.
You've got a few days of rehearsal where you can kind of make things, you know, or shoot things out, you know, A/B microphones or whatever, and then you got to commit and move forward. And I do kind of miss that, you know, oh, maybe we should add a diesel to this, you know, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I do miss that aspect of it.
Down the rabbit hole a little bit.
And also, you know, there's the creativity that happens in the studio sometimes where everyone feels it all at once.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that a whole lot out here because everything's established. All the music is already there, and the big parts are already big, so you don't get that, oh, what did we just stumble into here, you know?
It's not the place for experimentation.
Right.
It's a place for execution.
Yeah, well, to an extent. You know, out here I can experiment, but like in terms of, you know, writing music, creating stuff, it's everything is pretty well already established.
So in a sound check, how much today is, do you do virtual sound checks?
Yeah, so it's pretty rare anymore that I get to mix a band who comes out for a sound check every day. You know, they'll come out and do, you know, if they've had an issue, you know, someone missed a part or they're, you know, unclear about a cue or something like that, they might come out and do a song or two. But anymore, all these artists are pretty much used to just being able to stay on their buses, go have lunch, get off site, and just trust that we're going to handle it out here. So yeah, I carry a Pro Tools rig. I record the show every single night, and you know, for archival purposes, but also, yeah, I use it for the next day for virtual sound check, and that has been a game changer in this world. You know, when I first started touring, it wasn't even an option. There was no one doing it. You know, we were all, you know, working on analog consoles. Bringing a Pro Tools rig would have meant, you know, a giant machine, and you know, you can't do that. Now it's a laptop or whatever.
Right. So you still are recording?
Oh yeah, I am recording every day. Yeah, at 96K.
But you'd rather have an analog sound check than.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, if I can get the band up there, absolutely. You know, it's pretty close most of the time, and actually sometimes you get more true performances from the recording than you do in sound check because, you know, they're just up there. They're half-hearting their vocals sometimes. They're trying to save their throat or whatever it is. But you know, hearing the way that tube amp reacts that day, or the way that the drums are tuned,
voltage is different, whatever.
It helps. It helps
humidity,
to have them out there.
Sure,
yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right. So obviously, the world is digital consoles.
It is.
Is anybody out there with an analog console today?
Oh yeah, there's a handful of guys out there doing
Midas or something.
Yeah, I mean,
vintage Midas.
I see, Heritages every once in a while. You know, the giant dinosaurs. Fantastic consoles. If I had my druthers, I would probably carry one, but it's just not very practical anymore.
One question I forgot to ask you that I thought might be of interest. So, as the record labels and such have discovered that they can no longer really monetize product, are you seeing that your job, there's greater competition for your position at the front of house? Are there more recording engineers out there that are trying to transition into live because they're just not seeing the big projects?
In a sense. So I don't necessarily know that there's a lot of recording engineers transitioning into live audio. but there are a lot of live audio engineers, and a lot of people are just looking at it as a good career path now, as opposed to, like you say, you know, a record that used to cost $1 million,
Yeah.
you can make for $15,000 now, all day, every day. And so the budgets just aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's only a handful of people who are out there collecting that money from those record labels. And so, yeah, I mean, we're all out here selling T-shirts at the end of the day. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of people kind of competing for the same jobs. And yeah, it's a competitive market, but I feel like for the most part, we all kind of we all love what we do out here. So we're all just kind of like, yeah, let's all have fun with this. You know, it's not real cutthroat for the most part.
Good.
You know?
And to quote your colleague Logan,
Yeah.
he talks about getting on the wheel, like getting into the live circuit.
Yeah.
Like so just to help people, they're like, how do I get into this scene? Is there any
Yeah.
advice you can give people?
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple of avenues. Number one would be go work for an audio vendor. You know, Claire, Solotech, all these companies send people out on real tours, doing real gigs with real artists in pretty short term. You know, you can go and learn within a couple of months what you need to know. And that's a real good way to get your foot in the door. If you're solely focused on mixing, a better path is probably to find someone local to shadow. You know, find your club that you've gone to a million times and you think you've heard great shows there. Find out who's mixing it and see if you can shadow them. You know, go load trailers with them or whatever it is. However you can get your foot in the door, do that.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. And you know, express your interest and just try and keep your chops up. You know, a lot of learning to mix is the same in the studio as it is in the live environment, which is just take it upon yourself to try and find things that are going to make your mix better. You know, do your homework, do it on your own, load up show files and see if you can make them sound bad and why. You know what I mean?
So you supplement your digital world with analog outboard.
I do.
And I mean, why would you do that when we're in a land of plug-in convenience, recalls, all that kind of stuff?
So I was in the camp when we kind of all made the transition to digital, that this is it. I don't need any outboard gear. Everything's in the box, you know, and you know, completely recallable from day to day, and that works really, really well. What I found over time, though, is that, you know, even with the advances that they've made in digital audio, there are certain things that you just can't recreate. You know, you can approximate transformers and you know, all this kind of stuff, but there's non-linearities that you get from running cables to an XLR input and running it through a bunch of circuitry and then back out cables that you just can't replicate.
And it gets hot over time. It
gets hot, it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's part of it. There are certain pieces that there's just no digital replication of or emulation at all. And then another reason is there are certain things that I just want to be able to reach over at any point in the set and grab a knob and turn it, rather than, you know, clicking through menus, selecting the channel and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a mixture of, you know, a creative and artistic side of it, as well as very practical, just I need this channel at my fingertips
Right.
at all times.
Yep,
You know?
you've got the ergonomics right
Yeah.
there. Okay, so tell us a little bit about specifics. So your dangerous compressor I see in the rack is out here with us, so tell me a little bit about that.
I love this compressor. So this is actually something that you turned me on to. I didn't even know I wanted it until I had it. Yeah, this thing has been a workhorse. I've really put it through its paces. Since I got it out here, I've run it on drums, bass, guitars, vocals. I haven't had a chance to put it on the mix bus just because every time I move it, I want it back on what I had it on previously. Yeah, it's an incredibly simple but feature-rich compressor, and I love that it's not, you know, there's not a million dip switches and all this kind of stuff on it. It's just, you know, your basic compression controls with a few sidechain options, and it's perfect in that respect. I will say this, one of the things that has really, really impressed me about this compressor is when I put it on drums, I can absolutely punish a drum bus without any sort of parallel compression, and it sounds fantastic. It doesn't sound destructive or harsh. It's just it kind of makes the drums jump out just the way that you want that drum bus compressor to work.
What kind of ratios are you hitting it with on that drum bus?
So I've toyed around with a few different tactics there. Where I kind of landed was 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 with a pretty steep threshold.
Yeah.
And so I'll back the threshold down until maybe I start seeing 6+ dB of gain reduction, and then just kind of season the taste from there. However, I did have good luck with like higher ratios, 6-to-1 or 8-to-1 or whatever it is down there, and just popping that threshold up until it sounded right. But I kind of like that pop, that transient to pop through, and I feel like I get a little bit better translation there with a lower ratio.
Yeah, those are two great approaches.
Yeah.
Lighter ratio, deeper dive on threshold. Heavier ratio, lesser.
Yeah. Now, when I've used it on vocals, I do gravitate more towards the higher ratios because I really want it to just catch the peaks and then just kind of even out,
Right.
And I think that the higher ratio on this and a faster attack, and it just works great.
You said you're on vocals right now. You're using it.
I am.
Moment.
I might move it back to drums today, though. I don't know. That's the beauty of the thing is I can just put it anywhere and it sounds great.
So you feel it's pretty versatile.
I really do. I know that a lot of people use it on the mix bus. I haven't had a chance to try it out there yet. I'm sure it's great there, but man, I have moved it all over my show file, and it performs everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's where I want people to use it in individual stuff, like we were talking about earlier. It's like it works on a mix bus. Of course, it's going to work. It's a dangerous product, but it's so badass in my opinion on a vocal, on a drum kit. And
I love also that it's just so simple to if I want to split a couple of vocals over it, it's just boom. Now I got 2 mono compressors.
Yeah.
It's a really, really, like I say, simple, effective tool. I really love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So tell me about how you use BAX in your live environment.
Yeah, BAX has been a really cool kind of a season to taste sort of EQ for me. What I've been doing with it is basically starting with it flat, and environmental changes and things like we get 10,000 people in a venue, and high end changes or the low end changes or whatever it is, and BAX is one of those things that you can just kind of reach for and be like, it's a little too dark, and there it is, just lift up the high end or lift up the low end, and yeah, it's a fantastic piece. There's not much to it, which I really love. It's just kind of one of those. Is it better? Is it worse? And the other thing that I really love about it is every step is detented, which out here is incredible because you're always trying to make sure that you've got the right settings and your left and right are balanced, and having the detented knobs it's super valuable.
Did you use any of the cut filters on the top or bottom end? Or?
I haven't really used much in the top. I usually end up EQing a lot of that out on the system EQ.
Okay.
But the low cut is something that, I've used every single show. That's something I reach for. Every venue is different and has different low end resonances. And so that low cut is just a super simple way to clean up kick drum, bass guitar, synths that get down into that 30-40 register. You can just clean it up a little bit. Click, click, click. Up there it is.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So use that mainly on the mix bus.
Mix bus, yeah. Okay. That's where I've found it to be kind of just reach, grab, sounds better.
Okay. And that's tightening up your low end when you're cutting those extra.
Right. Yeah.
It's eating all your energy.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise. And it's very, very subtle. It's 12 hertz, 18 hertz, 24 hertz. So like you really, if you go slowly, you barely notice it working. But then if you pull it out, you're like, oh,
yeah,
it's a mess all of a sudden again.
Right on, brother. Thanks, man.
Hey, man.
I appreciate you.
I really appreciate you coming out.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming. Very nice to have you. And thank you, Mark.